Good morning. Poke the Hornets Nest. This is Nick Gardner. I got a special guest, Chris Kellstrom, in. I invited Chris Kellstrom because he was attacked on the Saturday show last week, and I thought he ought to have a chance to defend himself. I want a yes or no answer. Did you go into Kelly Frost's show 2 weeks ago with the intention of attacking him?
No, I went in there with the intention of getting you some information and finding out some facts with it from him.
And that's what he accused you of. He said that you came in and were on the attack right out of the gate. So that being said, as this is a quote from well, I want to preface this by saying I went last night and listened to the show when Chris was the guest, and I did not hear the word stupid one time.
No.
And Kelly Frost says, this is a quote, as if we don't know what we voted for because we're too stupid and uninformed. He claims that's what Chris said.
No, I said, quite frankly, in my opinion, the people that voted against Measure B were probably better informed than the people that voted for Measure B. Meaning that the people that voted for Measure B were told they were going to get voter ID if they voted for it. And everybody wants voter ID. I want voter ID. I signed Carl DeMaio's petition, and I will be voting for that and championing that in November. Everybody wants voter ID. About 80% of the population, even half the liberals, want voter ID. They're okay with voter ID. So I think the people that voted for Measure B were told they were going to get voter ID. I mean, the signs say voter ID, vote for Measure B, voter ID, and that's what they were voting for. They weren't told the truth. They weren't told, like, there's a whole bunch of other garbage in Measure B that will never stand up in court.
Where can we find a copy of Measure B?
It should be with the clerk of the board's office. I'm sure you can find the information there.
Okay.
I mean, not just the blurb that's put in the voter guide.
I want to see the whole thing.
The actual Measure B, and it's only one page. That's why I told Kelly when he tried to lie. I'll just say that when he tried to lie, and I said, Kelly, have you read Measure B? Oh, some of it, part of it. I said, no. It's a yes or no answer. It's one page. It's only one page, Kelly. So you've either read it or you haven't read it, and that's when he admitted he hadn't read it.
So here's another quote from Kelly. This business of calling everybody stupid, meaning you, and uninformed doesn't sit well with me and others. You know, that's made up. For voter ID, but this is too expensive. You're in favor of voter ID,
100%.
But Measure B is too expensive. It's going to cost us.
Measure B has a whole bunch of other garbage in there that nobody's read, nobody's bothered to look at. Like I told him on that show, we're going to have to add 53 more precincts. We have 63 precincts now. We'll have to have 116 precincts because Measure B says you have to have a precinct for every 1,000 voters. And Measure B says you have to hire 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans to count the votes at the end of the night at every precinct. So 116 precincts times 4, we're talking almost 500 people. And by the way, they can only be Democrats and Republicans. So anybody that's an independent or no party preference or libertarian or green or anything else is disenfranchised. They can't count the votes at the polling places according to Measure B. That's what I'm saying. People haven't read it. They don't know what's in there.
And we need the opportunity to read it, and we need to get that out. That's why I ask you. Now, you talked about a gal that sued a professor in Southern California and used that as a defense for us defending Stephanie Bridget. I understood it real well, what you said. And one thing he said, Kelly said, is the professor was found guilty, but they still defended him, paid for his lawyer. He wasn't found
He was not
guilty.
found guilty.
That's the reason they paid for it, because he had a settlement.
Absolutely. The girl took a settlement, so there was no admission of guilt. She did not prove him guilty. There was no admission of guilt. And that's when he went back to the college after he had already asked them for a defense, and they said no. He went back and said, now you need to pay for my defense. And they said, no, you sicko, we're not paying for it. It went through the courts, and they said, no, he's not guilty of anything. He wasn't proven guilty of anything. So he was doing his job during the normal course of business hours. Therefore, he has to be indemnified in the county, and then the city, the school, had to pay for his defense.
And that's the same thing with Stephanie Bridget.
Absolutely.
She's doing her job, and it's our responsibility to defend her.
I mean, you can argue that she wasn't doing it correctly, or she might have been doing some little bit of campaigning that she admitted to. I mean, but the bottom line is she still was doing her job during the normal course of business hours.
And Clint Curtis, when it comes to Measure B, this isn't during business hours.
Correct. In fact, quite frankly, he probably should have stayed more neutral on Measure B. I mean, he's the one counting the votes. You don't want to be the registered voters and be out there going, well, this is how I feel and this is how I'm voting. It's like, you shouldn't be telling anybody how you're voting. Your job is just to count the votes and be an impartial.
Yeah, and here's the last 2 comments from Kelly. His answer is to call voters stupid and uninformed. Chris, it sounds like you find the voters just stupid.
I would never say that.
You know, and I'm with you. 99% of the things you do is right. You stub your toe once and everybody hates you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big fan of Kevin Cry. He's done a couple things I don't like, but he's still the best supervisor, in my opinion, we've had.
Well, and that's the problem with conservatives in general. I mean, the Democrats will circle the wagons around whatever the cases may be. Conservatives, you can do 99 things right. You do one thing they disapprove of, and you're under the bus.
Okay, so I hear that Gallagher is holding hands with Plummer out at Bethel. Have you heard anything about that?
I have heard that they, I've heard they both attend, but that's.
You know, I have such a problem with Plummer because he thinks he's going to solve homelessness, doing the same thing everybody's doing from Seattle down to San Diego and from San Francisco to New York, and nobody's solving anything. It's getting worse.
I believe it is getting worse, yes.
Okay, well, that's good. Now, I ran into a cowboy guy from Cottonwood. He's short, he wears a cowboy hat, and he's got a real hoarse voice. And I know if you saw a picture of him, you'd know him.
I probably would.
And he told me, what was he telling me? Oh, he hates Kevin Cry. I said, why do you hate Kevin Cry? I don't know, I just hate him. And I pointed out a few things that Kevin's done right, and he, well, I still don't like him. But then he told me, he says, and this Clint guy, I says, Clint Curtis. He says, yeah, he's cost us millions and millions of dollars. Well, maybe not millions, tens of thousands, I believe is what I said. I said, how'd he do that? He says, well, I know the gal that writes the checks for the county, and we've had to pay off inferring sexual harassment or harassment towards employees, and he's just cost us a ton of money. Have you guys had to write any checks because of Clint Curtis's behavior towards the old employees?
Not that I'm aware of. There's been investigations, and I think Clint is his own worst enemy. I think Clint says some things in jest that you should not say in jest. And
well, I do the same thing.
Well, you do the same thing, and if you were a county employee, we'd probably have investigations on you, Nick.
Yeah, but I understand Clint's sense of humor, and I can laugh at it. And a lot of people, they don't get it. I can bullshit people, and they think I'm serious about the most far-out thing you ever saw in your life.
You know, when Kevin and I first got elected, and he was kind of treating a couple people like they were just coworkers and, you know, palling around him. Of course, he's never said anything, you know, over the top, or he never said anything. But I told him, I said, they're not your friends. These people are not your friends. And I said, they're writing down everything in a journal at home. And I'm telling you right now, you take anything out of context, it can be used against you. I'm telling you right now, they're not your friends, Kevin. He's, oh, no, we're cool. We're cool. No, you're not. I mean, I'm sorry. You know, after almost 4 years now, there's some department heads and there's some people that I just absolutely have the utmost, you know, respect for. But I still watch myself around just about every single one of them, because I'm not going to ever say anything that, you know, can be construed or taken out of context. It's just like, you know, maybe the sheriff and I have some pretty good conversations. We joke around quite a bit, but on, you know, on our own time type of deal. But I mean, otherwise, I'm pretty stoic. I don't say anything off color or jokingly, or I just don't do it. It's not worth it.
Well, that's right. You know, it seems like there's a lot of enemies out there. You know, it's just, I can't believe the way the ROV office is divided and how the old school went after Clint. I believe most of what was said about him is fabricated.
Well, did you read the reports?
No, I didn't. You were going to forward them to me, and I didn't get them. But the thing is, you know, my complaint about Monica Fugit was she more or less just presented the one side, the old school.
Not if you read the report.
But that's what she presented to the public at the meeting.
Well, she was answering questions from the board, and the board with Matt Plummer and Alan Long, they were asking her questions, and she was answering those questions. They weren't asking her questions that would favor Clint Curtis.
You should have.
I guess I could have.
That's okay, but that's the way, as a spectator, that's the way I interpret it.
Yeah, no, Monica Fugit is an extremely fair and bright and professional young lady. She does a fantastic job for us, and I cannot speak any higher of her.
Well, then I owe her an apology for calling for her head. It's
Absolutely.
Just the way I interpreted what was said up there, and I felt like she made the decision, and this is our finding.
And I know Oppenheimer's getting bashed all the time. I know certain people, well, There's a reason Joe Larmer used Oppenheimer. It's because the other two investigation groups that he used in the past, a certain supervisor that used to be there that's no longer there, was not happy with either one of those investigations from previously. So he used another. He used a third party. He used a different one. And like he said, there's only so many investigation firms out there. So a certain supervisor didn't like the other two investigations the way they came out. He didn't like those groups that were investigating, accusing them of the same thing they're all accusing Oppenheimer of. So we used Oppenheimer. We used another one, a third one, and they don't like the investigation. Sometimes maybe the investigation is shows what actually happened.
Well, maybe they don't like the results, so they attack the investigators.
I mean, I know I read the Mangrini report with Mangrini and Crop Hauler, and Mary Rickert used to say, "Oh, it just completely exonerated him." No, it did not. If you actually read the report, there were several things that were proven true. Allegations from Crop Hauler against Mangrini. There were several things that were proven true and verified, and there was a whole bunch of things that couldn't be verified, but they weren't proven false. They just couldn't be verified. So it didn't exonerate anybody.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Eric was going to get us a jail. What happened to that?
Well, I'll tell you what happened to the jail, because I almost took my phone last night from the sheriff because somebody asked that question about a jail. So we had 2023, I believe it was. We had set aside $35 million for a future jail. Now Fresno had built one before COVID for about $40 million. So we thought, okay, well, we are well on our way there. We've got 35 set aside.
Sure.
Maybe save another, 10 million down the road, and we'll be able to afford a jail. The cost of construction and materials has gone up through the roof. That same jail now would cost about $150 million.
Yes.
So,
well, the thing is, we get so much misinformation.
absolutely.
And it was really interesting. They dropped the location for the alternative custody center. It's not going to go down there next to River Ranch subdivision. Zero, it's done. But I read parts of a comment to the socialist online newspaper, Shasta Scout, and this gal was way off. We were going to have 1,200 criminals in there, 600 addicts being cleaned up, and another, I don't know how many hundred wandering the streets. And we just get so much misinformation, and these people act like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I know last year when Kevin Cry was chairman, I mean, I tried to meet with the people 5 different times. I tried, and they canceled every meeting. When they canceled a meeting the week before, they all came to the board meeting, and they were all. I mean, I understand them being concerned. I don't bash them for that at all. I
That's
get
right.
it. But let us give you some information. Let us talk to you. And so Kevin called emergency recess, and then got me and the sheriff and said, "Are you guys willing to stay here and have a meeting with these people?" We said, "Absolutely." So he told the crowd, he says, "If listen, I know you guys took time off from work and stuff. If you will stay here when this meeting's over, we will meet with you all."
I remember that.
Yeah, and they said no. And then they went out on the front sidewalk, and the sheriff tried to talk to him for an hour and a half out there. And then I had a meeting set up with them later that week. They canceled that. The sheriff and I and Kevin had a meeting the next week. They canceled that. They were going to be out of town, so I set up another meeting just by myself to meet with them, and they canceled that. And it's like, and then they go up there and say that I wouldn't talk to them. It's a little frustrating, but last night, hopefully it resolved everything. And, I mean, I heard one woman in there crying, weeping, that she was so.
Isn't that something?
Well, I mean, I had one lady that sent me an email, and I mean, just what a sweetheart. She laid out that she didn't want it, and she had kids, and she was worried about it, but she was very polite. And I emailed her back, and I said, thank you for being as polite as you are. You got your point across, and I heard you, and I said, thank you. You didn't need to, vitriol and name calling and accusations and threats. You told me that you gave me what your feelings on it. And she was very sweet. She sent me back an email. I can't remember her name, but she sent me back an email, and she says, "Oh, I'd never call you names," and da-da-da-da. And it's like, you can get your point across without threats and name calling.
Well, I sat next to a guy that owned some property right on the river, right next to where it was going to be, and he thought it was a good location.
What?
Yeah, big old guy.
Oh,
and,
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he said, "I think this is a good location for
Yeah,
that. It's got to go somewhere."
Yeah, I talked to him afterwards, and he goes, Chris, wherever this is going to go, neighbors aren't going to like it. No matter where you put it, they're not going to like it.
But Mike Johnson made a point. There's going to be a bigger law enforcement footprint next to that than anywhere else in the county.
Yeah, and
I'd never thought of that.
And early on, one of the people that lives down there, and she's very sweet, and she was actually my junior high PE teacher. I told her, I said, honestly, you're probably going to be safer with a bunch of correctional officers and deputies next door to you than you are now. But understandably, they didn't want that in there. And those are my constituents, and they made it loud and clear, and I told them, leading up to this, because I took a step back probably 6 months ago. I thought, okay, obviously these are my constituents; they're absolutely against it, so I'm just not even going to comment anymore. I'm gonna so during interviews and stuff, people would bring it up, and I'd say, look, I fully support the sheriff 100%, but I'm not commenting on that. And then I finally had to tell him probably a month ago. I said, listen, they've made it loud and clear. Those are my constituents. I can't support the location anymore. And, he understood that. And I said, I have your back and I support you 100%, but I just can't support the location anymore.
Let me ask you this. What kind of shape is the county in financially?
I mean, we're doing okay. We're paying the bills. There's not a whole lot of excess funds out there. This last budget was pretty much flat. So as a taxpayer, you're thinking, well, that's not a cut. If it's the same budget they had last year, it's not a cut. Well, if you ask any department head, it certainly is a cut because their insurance has gone up. Everything's gone up. The cost of everything has gone up in their departments. So they get the same budget they had last year, but their costs have all increased. So it theoretically is a cut, but at the same time, again, it's pretty much the same budget we had last year.
I was reading one time this one department asked for $60,000 increase, and they got a $20,000 increase, and they claim they took a $40,000 cut.
Yeah, and that's how it's looked at, and again, when you're on the inside, I mean, it is a cut. I mean, when their costs have all gone through the roof and they get the same amount of money they had the year before, but then welcome to Social Security and fixed incomes. I mean, it's kind of the same type of deal.
Have you ever counted how many fees the county has?
I have not.
I got a copy of all the fees for the city of Reading, and it's just a little over 400. And it's just unbelievable. There's a fee on everything. If you change your water heater, you've got to get a permit. There's a fee.
Yep, siding, windows, roof. Yeah.
What gets me is the inspectors. They come out and inspect and charge you a fee for inspecting. Well, we as taxpayers have already paid them. We were paying their wages. We paid their overhead and everything. And now they're charging us for doing their job we hired them to do.
Well, because they're doing that job specifically for you on that particular day. And so
well, I don't want to hire them.
The other 180,000 taxpayers in this county don't want to pay for your inspection. But I agree with you. I know, and I've had several conversations wanting to hopefully reduce some fees. I had somebody that wanted to put a carport up, the pre-made metal carports.
Yes.
And he's like, it's like an $1,800 or $2,000 fee for this carport. He goes, it's half the price of what the carport cost me.
Sure.
So we've had a lot of conversations. A lot of this is based on state recommendations, or they get their fees from the state guidelines. So we're not out there just willy-nilly charging fees.
Yeah,
they're based on something.
Yeah, but there's a lot of fees.
There's
that
a lot
could
of
go
fees.
away.
And we did away with impact fees, which we're still catching flack
Still
at the
getting
board.
heartburn over that.
Yeah, and there's certain people that want to put those back on. What people don't understand, my opponent says, oh, it's the big developers, and they're just saving the money to developers. No, it's Joe Blow homeowner that builds a house, and after they've got their grading permit and their electrical permit and their roofing permit and their septic permit and all the stuff all the permits they have to buy, then they say, okay, now you have to pay these impact fees, or you don't get an occupancy tag, and it's usually about $9,000 for a house. That's just regular everyday people. I mean, I know somebody that built a garage and he had to pay $1,800 for a garage. And it's like, and this is just, again, blue collar Joe Blow homeowner that had saved up enough money, got enough money to rebuild a garage or a shop or whatever it was, and then he had to pay these fees.
And it was my understanding this was based on a population of 250,000 people when they did that. And these fees were in an account that hadn't hardly been used.
We still have fees, and we still have money in accounts that have not been used.
And these people act like we bankrupted the county,
Yep.
and it's cost us building roads, and it hasn't cost us anything, has it?
Well, I mean, the sheriff at the last budget meeting would like to bring back the impact fees because, again, I mean, the public safety and the rest of the departments are on a flat budget, so I mean, they're looking for some sort of more revenue.
Well, they're always looking for revenue.
Yeah, true.
They've got retirements they've got to finance.
Yeah.
That's a sore subject.
Well, speaking of the sheriff, and I want to get that out there too, because I brought it up during a debate. So he was getting bashed for, he earned his retirement and now he's still a sheriff. Well, it's illegal for an elected official to be retired. He couldn't do it if he's a police chief. He'd be against CalPERS laws. But an elected official can retire and then earn a wage. Alan Long's doing it right now. He's retired from the police force. He's earning his retirement, and now he's a county supervisor. Before him, Leonard Modi did. Had John Green won the race against the sheriff, John Green would have been doing it. He was retired and he would have been the sheriff. So people are bashing the sheriff. Now he earned that retirement 30 years. He was a cop over in Eureka. He was police chief in Ione. He was police chief in Anderson. They appointed him as sheriff, and shortly after appointing him, he reached his maximum. So it would be stupid for him to continue to pay into a system that he's already maxed out on.
Sure.
Not only that, but now we're not paying his match. So if any other sheriff that wasn't retired, we'd be paying their match for their retirement. It saves the county about $500,000.
See, people have trouble following that. Let me explain. He retired. He's collecting, let's just say, $250,000, $250,000. He's retired. Now he's the police chief, and he's collecting maybe $200,000 as his salary, but we're not having to pay and service his retirement because he's already getting it. It's saving us $100,000 a year or more,
Yep.
not paying into PERS, unfunded pension liabilities.
And I'm very happy the sheriff decided to stay here and not go sit by a swimming pool and smoking a cigar. I'm very happy because he's doing a fantastic job. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better sheriff. He's doing a great job. So if it was somebody else, if he was retired and just rode off into the sunset and enjoyed his life, we would be paying another sheriff the same wages we're paying him, but we'd probably be paying into their retirement, which
Yes.
we're not.
Yes.
So
Okay. Well, yeah. Chris has got to get going. He's got a LAFCO meeting.
yes, sir.
What do you think of LAFCO?
It's a pretty important group. I mean, it really is. They make a lot of decisions. They oversee fire districts and mosquito vector boards, and then they do annexations and different. They do quite a bit of work. There's a lot of stuff that they're in charge
When
of.
it comes to annexations, can they force somebody to be annexed to the city if they don't want to be?
Well, the city would have to go to LAFCO. It'd have to be approved through LAFCO to annex a portion. Like, for instance, the little part of Enterprise that's in the county.
Where I live.
jurisdiction. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. My grandfather lived down off Bocelli Lane, and his backyard, I believe, was county, and his front yard was city.
Oh, is that right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. See, I'm county down there, and we fought it, and they annexed us at one time, and we got them to throw it out. But I was just curious if they can just walk in and say you're. In fact, Erwin Fust was the supervisor then. And I called him up, and he said they were planning on just annexing it against our will, whether we wanted it or not. And we put up a fight, and they didn't annex us.
Yeah, I grew up in Enterprise. I used to deliver papers to your house, actually.
Is that right?
Before you were there, yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up in Enterprise, and I remember when they annexed us into the city of Reading.
Yes.
All the houses in my neighborhood had septic systems in the backyards, and then we hooked to the sewer.
Well, a lot of them still have septic systems down where I live.
Yeah.
And the water, you can keep your well, but you've got to put in some kind of a valve to where it can't siphon into the water system. Reading wouldn't want that good water going into their chlorinated water, would they?
I don't know. I'm on a well, so I don't worry about it.
Do you ever smell City of Reading water? Probably Anderson, too. It smells like swimming pool water.
Really? Yeah, no.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I came up with a theory. People are having trouble with their gardens, and I started wondering, well, if you're watering with chlorinated water, it's got to kill all the microbes and all the bugs and stuff that are in your soil that are good for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I know decades ago, my Aunt Dorothy was famous for her pickles. Everybody wanted Aunt Dorothy's pickles at the end of the year. We'd always get a jar at Christmas or whatever. And she lived in Richmond. And that water, even 50 years ago, that water it was horrible. And her pickles started being horrible too.
I've got a well. I've got two wells. I've got one that's a little more than 30 foot deep, and the water is pristine. And I've got one in back, an agricultural well that's 110 foot deep, and it's got sulfur in it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, and they're just 100 feet from each other. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But that sulfur water promotes growth. The plants like it.
Yeah. All right, Nick, I'm going to have to get.
Thanks for coming
All
in
right,
and clearing
you
up
betcha.
a lot of that stuff. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And we've got to get you back in here. Anyway, that was pretty interesting. I'm going to read you this piece that came from the what I call the Socialist News from Shasta County, Shasta Scout. In fact, there's a really good article today in there about visitation at the jail. It seems they haven't had visitation for 10 months now because they're of construction. They had to repair the elevator. They expected 4 months, and now it's 10 months. And it's heart-touching, but it's ridiculous. It wants to give the prisoners rights to visit. and well, they have the rights, and they've been taken away. And there's some bleeding heart study from Berkeley, California, Berkeley, how this is detrimental to the prisoners. And it seems to me we're more concerned with the prisoners and the homeless than we are with the tax-paying citizen that's raising a family and doesn't get in trouble and pays all their bills, and that's getting pretty old. But this letter to the Shasta Scout was by Lori Arsenault. Well, Matt Planner, Planner, he Plummer, he wants to have a front porch forum going on where you go sit on your neighbor's front porch and visit. All my neighbors are liberals, so we don't have anything to talk about. Is busy promoting unity in 5 special neighborhoods. He's also concurrently busy ruining another lovely, well-established neighborhood full of young families, children, and retired people, River Ranch. He is he is actively promoting and seems to be spearheading the proposed new prison, which is all about fences of the very neighborhood. 1,200 beds, an adjacent 600 bed rehabilitation center, as well as an outpatient facility, will house 1,200 criminals, 600 addicts, and who can estimate the number of outpatients who will be roaming around the neighborhoods? These numbers are ridiculous. In fact, if you didn't hear, I don't know if Chris and I talked about it. They're not going to put that alternative custody program down at south of town next to Haven Humane on the 93 acres, I think it is. That's outdone. It's not going to happen. People should be outraged. This prison at all will affect every single community member that resides in Shasta County. This is a for-profit facility on the Sacramento River front. See, this is all so misleading. It's not a for-profit. It's going to cost us a fortune. Remodel the old jail or move this to Susanville where there is a large facility all ready to go. Remodel that. This is all about location of choice. If such a facility is fast enough, is in fact necessary, it needs to be in an isolated location, not in the middle of schools, families, and perimeter surroundings. When those criminals are released, they will simply wander into Anderson and Redding and all of Shasta County. So there you go. There is a misleading comment in Shasta Scout, and people will believe this. I strongly suggest that when you write a letter to the editor, know what you're talking about. Either that or quit misleading people because of your desired ending to the story. So, our Sheriff Mike Johnson is looking for a new location for the alternative custody program. And so let's get on top of that. And if you hadn't heard, Mike Gallagher is a Bethelite. I understand Aaron Reisner kind of goes around the outside, maybe goes to the stirring. A lot of people think that's Little Bethel. And look for our county to change financially here in the future. In other words, be broke. And just like the city of Redding. I said when Matt Plummer got elected that this is Bethel getting their foot in the door to take over Shasta County the same way they did city of Redding. And you can see what the Bethel's done to the city of Redding, the people that go to Bethel. And boy, I'll tell you, it's not desirable, in my opinion. Homelessness is out of control. But Matt thinks if we give them all a house, homelessness will go away. So we'll see how that works out. Anyway, I'm going to go. Thanks for listening. Peace, love, and waterbeds. Bye.